Why had the alert been sent without rank, without context, without the usual lines of military formality? 4 words, no signature, no clearance code, just, "She's alive." Room 3B. Admiral Lucian Hart had commanded fleets through firestorms, watched the ocean itself turn into a graveyard of steel, but nothing had ever made his pulse hammer like those 4 words. His boots echoed through the medical wing corridor, each step sharp, but not steady. For the first time in years, he was walking not as a commander but as a man chasing a ghost. The hallway lights flickered with their soft, mechanical hum. Cold, sterile air pressed against his lungs. The naval hospital wing had always unsettled him. It was the one place no amount of rank could shield you from truth. Here, war's cost was written on bodies, limbs missing, faces burned, names erased from rosters with a single pen stroke. But this was different. This wasn't supposed to exist at all. He stopped before the door marked 3B. His hand hovered over the handle. He had spoken at her funeral. He had looked into the eyes of her mother and promised she did not die in vain. He had read her name etched in black stone among the fallen. To believe otherwise now felt almost like betrayal. And yet his hand pressed down. The door gave way. He froze. Lieutenant Commander Ara Voss, Ara to those few who had ever been close enough to earn her trust, sat upright in the hospital bed. Her auburn hair, once long and untamed, was now cropped close to her scalp. Her skin, pale, starved of sunlight, carried a thin, almost fragile pallor. A fresh bandage wrapped her forearm. A bruise crept across her collar. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, steel gray, sharp, defiant, eyes that hadn't changed in 9 years. "Admiral," she said, voice steady but quiet, as if testing the weight of a word not spoken in years. "Voss," Lucian breathed. It left him like an oath, one he had buried long ago. He stepped inside, slow, careful, as if one wrong movement might shatter the illusion. "I thought you were dead." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "So did I for a while." The silence between them carried years. Too many missions briefed without her. Too many times he had turned toward an empty chair. She was the officer who had volunteered for the impossible, the kind who didn't just follow orders but reshaped them. And then gone. Operation Black Tide, 12 soldiers vanished. One unrecognizable body recovered, the rest erased. The reports had been chaos, shredded logs, severed trackers, failed extraction routes. No pings, no beacons, just silence. He had signed off on the killed in action. He had stood before the fleet and told them she was gone. Yet here she was. "Where have you been?" His voice cracked with a mix of demand and disbelief. Her gaze flickered away, captured, tortured, forgotten. The words struck harder than any bullet. She spoke them without hesitation, without self-pity, just fact. "I triggered the fail-safe," she continued. "Sent the abort code before they found me, but it cost me everything, my freedom, my body, my time." Lucian stepped closer, careful, as though each inch was trespass. "Why didn't we hear anything? Why didn't you?" "There was no way," she interrupted softly. "They dragged me into an island bunker. No grid systems, no trackers, they stripped my comms. For the first 3 months I didn't know day from night. Drugs, restraints, silence." Her voice lowered, but her jaw tightened. "They tried to break me, every single day." Lucian swallowed hard. He had known Ara was strong, but this was beyond strength. This was endurance sharpened into something unrecognizable. "I escaped after 7 years," she said, almost like an afterthought. "A storm hit. Supply boat docked. I slipped out. Took me another year to crawl through jungles, ports, shadows. A year to get far enough to send a signal. Another before I could even stand without pain." She paused, studied him. Her next words came like a knife drawn slow. "I want to show you something." His head shook instinctively. "Ara, you don't need." But she was already moving. She gripped the hem of her gown, lifted it slowly. His breath caught. Across her ribs, scars carved like tallies, not jagged, Not random, neat, precise. 100 lines, each one etched by method, not madness. Above them, a fresh wound stretched across her side, still angry, still healing. They did one every time I refused, she said, voice steady, eyes locked on him. Every silence, every no, every time I fought back. Lucian staggered a half step back. The weight of all his campaigns, all the wreckage he had seen, collapsed beneath the quiet brutality of those scars. I stopped counting at 92, she whispered, lowering the fabric. But my body didn't. The room stilled. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. He turned away, jaw set, eyes burning against tears he would never allow. When he faced her again, his expression had shifted. Guilt, shame, and something else, respect. Not the formal respect of command, but the raw kind reserved for survivors who defied death itself. "You saved the fleet," he said quietly. "You stopped that missile." Her chin lifted slightly. "But I didn't stop them, not yet." Lucian frowned. "Aura. I know their layout, their defenses, what they're building, what they plan to launch next." Suspicion cut through his chest. "We've intercepted chatter, something new, prototype weapons." "Worse," she said, her eyes darkened. "A bioweapon, hidden inside medical relief shipments, synthetic vaccines encoded with viral payloads, entire cities wiped out before anyone knows." Lucian's stomach knotted. He had seen ruthless plans, but this was calculated cruelty. "We'll mount a joint strike," he said firmly. Her head shook before he could finish. "No, you need me. I can move through them without raising alarms. I know their codes, their blind spots, their patterns. No strike team can do what I can." "You just got back," he snapped, voice low but fierce. "You need rest, medical care, time." Her answer was immediate. "I didn't survive that place to rest. I survived to finish the job." His chest tightened. If she went back, there might not be a return. "There won't be a ticket home," he said, almost pleading. "I know." Her eyes did not waver. "I'm not afraid of dying, Admiral, not after what I've seen." She paused. Her voice softened, more fragile than before. "I'm afraid of surviving again, surviving and knowing I let them win." That truth cut deeper than any wound. Lucian exhaled, long, unsteady. At last he nodded. "I'll authorize it. Black Ops, off the record, no trail if it goes wrong." "It won't," she cut in. "This time I'm ready." He studied her one last time. The scars, the fire in her eyes, the weight of years no one could give back. "You don't owe us anything, Ara," he said, "but we owe you everything." She stood slow, stiff, every movement betraying pain, but she stood taller than any soldier he had ever known. She moved toward the door. He called out, voice breaking the silence. "Ara." She turned. "You didn't come back broken." His voice cracked. "You came back forged." A flicker of something passed her lips. Not joy, not relief, something harder, unshakable. "No," she whispered. "I came back weaponized." And with that she left the room. Not as a ghost, not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as the storm itself. Why did the air feel heavier as she stepped out of the medical wing? The corridors of the naval base were the same steel-gray walls, the same sharp corners, the same security cameras blinking with their indifferent red eyes. But to Ara, each step carried the weight of ghosts. 9 years stolen, 9 years erased, and now the world she returned to didn't recognize her. Sailors passed her in the hallway, some glancing at her bandaged arm, others pretending not to notice the stranger in a hospital gown beneath the borrowed jacket. No salute, no acknowledgement. She was nobody to them, a ghost in plain sight. She didn't mind, not yet. But the silence stung. Admiral Hart walked beside her, silent too, as though words might break the fragile thread holding reality together. He had spent his life making sense of chaos, orders, strategies, outcomes measured in numbers. But how could he measure this? A soldier presumed dead, scars carved into her ribs like a tally of defiance. now standing in his shadow as if time itself had bent to let her through. They entered his office. The heavy door sealed behind them with a mechanical thud. The Admiral gestured to the chair across from his desk, but she remained standing. "Sit," he said quietly. "I've been sitting for 9 years," she replied. "I'll stand." Lucian didn't argue. He studied her, how she held her frame rigid despite the obvious pain, how her eyes scanned the room not like a guest, but like someone calculating every angle of exit. Finally, he leaned forward. "Tell me everything." She inhaled sharply. Memories flickered across her face, not stories rehearsed, memories dragged from a place she'd locked away. "They kept me underground," she began. "Concrete walls, no windows, only light when they wanted me awake. They thought pain would teach me to talk, but I learned something else. Silence can be a weapon. Every time I refused, they marked me, said they'd make sure my body remembered what my voice would not betray." Her hand brushed her ribs unconsciously. Lucian's jaw clenched. "We'll burn them out, level the island." "No," she said firmly. "You don't get it. If you send a strike, they'll scatter. The weapon will vanish with them. You need someone inside. Someone who already knows their codes, their routines, their faces." "You," he said flatly. "Yes." For a moment the room felt colder. He wanted to tell her no, wanted to lock the door, keep her safe, let her recover. But he saw it in her eyes, the same fire that had carried her through 9 years of torment. If he denied her now, she would find her own way back. Alone. Still, a different question pressed against his chest. "What if this isn't just about the mission?" he asked softly. Her gaze snapped to him, sharp, almost angry. "What do you mean?" "What if you're not going back to finish the job? What if you're going back because you don't know how to live outside of it?" The words struck deeper than she expected. Her chest tightened, her mouth opened, then closed. She hated that he might be right. Silence stretched. Her eyes dropped to the floor. For a brief moment the defiant soldier was gone, and all that remained was a woman, fragile, displaced, terrified of what normal might even mean. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Lucian swallowed hard. It was the first true confession she'd given him. Before he could respond, a knock sounded. The door opened just enough for a young intelligence officer to slide a folder onto the Admiral's desk. No words, no glance at Ara, just duty. When the door shut, Lucian pushed the file across the table. Satellite intercepts, movement near the southern corridor, cargo shipments masked as medical relief. If what you say is true, this is it. She flipped the folder open. Photos, coordinates, shipping manifests, her eyes narrowed. Same route, same dockyard, they haven't changed it, cocky bastards. "Can you infiltrate?" Lucian asked. Her lips curved, not into a smile but something colder. "I already have." "What do you mean?" "They let me see everything. Thought it didn't matter. Thought no one would believe a prisoner. I know the guard shifts, the passwords, even the smell of the place." She closed the folder, pushed it back. "I can walk in blindfolded." Lucian leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then we plan, but Ara, this won't be official. You'll have no backup, no comms, if something goes wrong." "It won't," she cut him off. Her voice was low, steady, unshakable. He studied her, wondering if she believed it, or if she needed to. That night Ara sat alone in the barracks they had assigned her. The cot was too soft, the walls too quiet, the air too clean. Every sound felt wrong. She closed her eyes, but sleep refused. Every time her lids grew heavy, she saw the bunker, the scars, the faces of the men who had carved them. She rose, packing. Her hand brushed the cold metal of the window frame. Beyond it, the sea stretched endless and black, moonlight cutting its surface into silver shards. And for the first time since returning, her hands shook. Not from fear of going back, but from fear of staying. Could she exist in this world? A world of clean uniforms, polite salutes, cafeteria chatter. She was forged in silence, in pain, in the dark corners where survival was the only law. Out here, she felt exposed, vulnerable, almost human. The thought terrified her. Her reflection caught in the window pane, hollow cheeks, cropped hair, eyes that no longer belonged to the woman in the photos on memorial walls. Who was she now? The door creaked open. Lucian stepped inside quietly. He didn't announce himself as Admiral, didn't posture with authority. He just stood there, another shadow in the dim barracks light. "You're awake," he said softly. "I don't sleep much," she replied. He nodded as if he expected that. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, she whispered, "Do you think I'm broken?" Lucian's throat tightened. "No," he said firmly, "you're not broken." She turned, eyes narrowing, searching his face for the lie. "You're scarred," he admitted, "but scars aren't weakness, they're proof you endured." For a moment her eyes softened, a fragile crack in the armor, then she straightened again. "Then help me finish this." Lucian looked at her, really looked. He saw not just the soldier, not just the survivor, but the weight she carried, the unbearable truth that she might not know who she was without the fight. At last he nodded. "We leave in 3 days." Ara exhaled slowly. Not relief, not peace, something colder, something inevitable. Because the truth was, she wasn't chasing redemption. She wasn't even chasing victory. She was chasing silence. The only silence she trusted. The kind that comes after the storm. Why did the plane feel more like a coffin than transport? Ara sat strapped into the unmarked aircraft, the hum of its engines droning steady, oppressive. No insignia, no call sign, just a flight plan erased before it was written. This wasn't a mission of record. This was a ghost flight carrying a ghost soldier back to the place that had nearly killed her. Across from her, Admiral Hart sat in silence. He wasn't supposed to be here. Admirals didn't accompany Black Ops returns. But when she boarded, he had already been waiting. She hadn't asked why. Maybe he needed to see this through. Maybe he didn't trust anyone else to. Maybe he just couldn't let her go alone. The cabin lights were dimmed. Shadows stretched across the steel walls, broken only by the occasional flicker of the console lights. Ara's eyes stayed closed, but she wasn't sleeping. She was rehearsing. Not drills, not maneuvers, memories. Every corridor, every door code, every guard rotation she had memorized through the haze of her captivity. Her body ached against the seat. Her scars burned faintly, as if they knew where she was going, as if the flesh itself remembered. "You don't have to prove anything," Lucian said suddenly. His voice was quiet, but in the heavy silence of the cabin, it landed like a hammer. Her eyes opened, steady on him. "I'm not here to prove." "Then what?" His tone was sharp, almost pleading. "Revenge." She shook her head slowly. "Completion." Lucian studied her. Completion. The word unsettled him more than revenge. Revenge was fire, it burned, consumed, left ash. Completion was colder, final, the end of something that could not coexist with anything after. Before he could respond, the pilot's voice crackled over the comms. 10 minutes. Ara tightened the straps on her vest, checked the suppressed pistol, the blade, the empty pack waiting to be filled with whatever intel she could carry, tools of survival, not victory. Lucian leaned closer. "If you don't come back." She cut him off with a glance. "Then I finished it." The plane descended, its belly opening to swallow the black water below. A small raft, motorless, dropped soundlessly into the waves. Ara unclipped her harness, stood with rigid steadiness despite the tremor in her legs. Lucian caught her arm. "Ara." She met his eyes. "Don't remember me as a victim." He released her slowly. She stepped into the darkness, lowering herself onto the raft. The sea swallowed her without sound. Within seconds, she was a shadow against the endless horizon, alone again. The plane rose, disappearing into cloud. No witnesses, no proof. Just one woman drifting toward the very prison that had forged her scars. The night air was sharp, damp with salt. She paddled with slow, silent strokes. Her body remembered the rhythm. She had escaped this place once. Now she was returning by choice. The irony wasn't lost on her. Hours passed. The silhouette of the island rose, jagged cliffs cutting into the sky. The same cliffs she had once slipped down in a storm, bloodied hands clawing for freedom. Now they stood waiting, like the teeth of a predator she was walking back into. She grounded the raft beneath the cover of rocks, pulling it into shadow. Her boots touched sand, cold, familiar. Every sense sharpened, the smell of damp earth, the faint hum of generators in the distance, the taste of iron on the back of her tongue, the memory of blood impossible to forget. She moved inland, crouched low, every step deliberate. The jungle canopy wrapped her in darkness. Cicadas screamed. Her breath steadied. This was where she had learned patience, where silence had become her shield. And then ahead, the first checkpoint. Two guards, smoking careless, their rifles slung loose. She froze, watching from the tree line. Same pattern, same weakness. Nothing had changed. It almost angered her, that after 9 years they still stood here the same way, as if she had never existed. She waited, a slow count of 60. One guard stepped away, back turned. The other glanced down at his lighter. She slipped forward, silent as shadow. The blade was in her hand before thought could catch up. One movement, a whisper of steel. The body lowered gently to the ground, lighter still in his hand. The second guard turned too late, a suppressed shot, a faint thud. Silence returned. Her chest heaved once, controlled. Not triumph, not guilt, just necessity. She dragged the bodies into brush, covered them with leaves. Her hands moved with mechanical precision. She didn't look at their faces. The path was clear. Her boots touched concrete, the outer perimeter, the walls she had memorized like scars. Her fingers traced the grooves of the access panel, the code etched into her mind. 4 digits. The sound of the pad beeping unlocked something deeper in her, something she didn't want to remember. The gate opened with a slow groan. She stepped inside. The bunker air hit her instantly. Damp, chemical, sterile in the wrong way, a smell she thought she would never endure again. Her chest tightened, every nerve screamed to turn back, to run, but her feet carried her forward. She belonged here in this awful silence. Corridors stretched ahead. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She counted them unconsciously, 7 to the first corner, 3 to the next. Nothing had changed. Her scars pulsed beneath her shirt. She pressed a palm against them, grounding herself. She slipped into a storage room, crouching low, pulled the small camera from her pack, snapped photos of manifests, schematics, crates marked with medical insignia. All lies, all poison. Every shutter click felt too loud, like a gunshot echoing in the stillness. She froze when she heard footsteps. 2 men, voices low, foreign tongue she still understood. Shipment leaves Friday. Vaccines distributed in Port Astor. Children first, less suspicion. Her stomach churned. Children, the cruelty was methodical, cold. She gripped the pistol, steadying her breath. Waited. The men passed, their voices fading into distance. She exhaled silently, sweat dampening her palms. Her mission was clear now. Evidence wasn't enough. Intercepting wasn't enough. The weapon had to be destroyed at the source. She moved deeper, past the sleeping quarters she knew too well, past the cell that had once been hers. She stopped. Her breath caught. The wall still bore her marks, scratches etched by fingernails when she had nothing left but to count days in desperation. Dozens of lines, some shallow, some deep, stretching like desperate prayers across the concrete. Her knees weakened. She pressed a hand against the cold wall, forehead leaning into it. For a moment, the soldier fell away. She was just Ara again, just the woman who had begged silently for someone to remember her. Tears pricked her eyes, but she forced them back. Not here, not now. She turned, straightened, and walked on. Because the time for begging was over. Now she carried the storm. Why did the air grow colder the deeper she went? The bunker corridors hadn't changed, but every step pressed heavier, as if the walls themselves remembered her. Ara's boots barely whispered against the concrete, her breathing measured, her pistol steady in her grip. She had told herself she was ready, but readiness wasn't the same as walking back into the belly of the place that had carved her into silence. She passed a steel door. The number plate was gone, but she didn't need it. She knew what was behind it. Interrogation room. She hesitated, the urge to move on clawing at her chest, but her feet betrayed her. She pushed the door open. The room was empty now. A single chair bolted to the floor, metal table, hooks in the ceiling where lights and chains had once hung. Her stomach twisted. She saw herself strapped there, the cold edge of steel against her ribs, the voices telling her one more cut, one more scar, one more chance to speak. Her fingers trembled on the doorframe. She shut it quickly, forcing air into her lungs. She couldn't let the past drag her down now. Not here, not when every second mattered. She moved deeper, passing labs humming with low machinery. Fluorescent lights spilled under the doors. Through a narrow window she caught glimpses, white coats, masked faces, vials of liquid glowing faintly under ultraviolet. She snapped photos quickly, fingers working fast, her heart hammering louder than the click of the camera. Then she froze. One of the scientists looked up. For a moment their eyes met through the glass. Ara's breath caught, but he turned away uninterested. To him, she was just another shadow in a hallway. Her chest eased. She slipped further down. The deeper she went, the more the air stank of chemicals, bleach, burnt plastic, something faintly metallic like blood. A heavy vault door loomed ahead. She recognized it instantly. The armory, the place she had been forbidden even to glimpse when she was a prisoner. Now she pressed her palm against the cold steel. Codes flooded back into her mind. Numbers whispered in the dark years when memory was the only rebellion she had left. Her fingers moved over the keypad. A soft beep. The door released with a hiss. Inside, rows of crates. Not weapons in the usual sense. No rifles. No explosives. Just hundreds of sealed containers labeled as relief shipments. The red cross of medical insignia painted boldly across each. Her stomach turned. She opened one carefully. Inside, cooling canisters, rows of syringes filled with a faintly iridescent fluid. Harmless to the eye, death disguised as salvation. Her breath shook. She forced her hand steady and raised the camera. Snap, 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 evidence, proof. But the sight wasn't just horror, it was memory. She could hear the guards laughing outside her cell, talking about how they'd tricked nations into poisoning their own children. She remembered the helpless rage, the walls she couldn't break, the silence that had become her only answer. Her chest burned. She shut the crate, her eyes hardened. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about erasure. This weapon had to be destroyed here now before it ever left the ground. But how? Her mind raced. She knew the bunker's systems, its power lines, its generators, the fuel reserves kept underground. One spark could set off a chain that would burn this place down to ash. But timing mattered. If she detonated too soon, the evidence would vanish with it. Too late, and the shipments would already be gone. Footsteps echoed down the hall. She slipped into shadow, crouching behind crates. Two soldiers entered, voices low. Shipment leaves tomorrow, not Friday. They moved it up. Her pulse spiked. Tomorrow. She had less than 24 hours. The men moved closer. She stayed frozen, listening. Admiral wants confirmation before it goes. Said the prototype batch is unstable. Last thing he wants is a trace leading back here. Admiral, the word hit her like ice. Not their Admiral, not Lucian, someone else. Someone pulling strings from the shadows. She memorized the detail, every syllable etched into her mind. Then the soldiers turned, leaving the vault door open. Ara slipped out behind them, silent as a ghost. She moved toward the lower levels, the generator rooms. The air grew hotter, the hum of machines louder. She crouched near the stairwell, pulling a folded scrap of paper from her pocket. Not official maps, her own sketches. Lines drawn in secret on scraps of cloth during her captivity, memorized, hidden, carried in her head for years. Every exit, every fuel line, every weak point she had studied when she was a prisoner, never knowing if she'd live long enough to use them. And now here she was. She tucked the paper back, slipped down the stairs. The generator room was massive. Towers of machinery rose like steel giants, their hum vibrating in her bones. Pipes ran overhead, carrying fuel through veins of rusted metal. She crouched, scanning, looking for the one flaw she remembered, and there it was, the auxiliary tank patched crudely after a storm flood, weak, vulnerable. She reached for the charges in her pack, small, precise, enough to rupture but not detonate instantly. She set them carefully, each placement measured, her breath steady despite the pounding in her chest. As she worked, voices returned, not in the room, in her head, the memories. Speak or we'll carve another. One day you'll break, they all do. You are forgotten, no one is coming. Her hands shook. She clenched them into fists, forcing focus. Not here, not now. She whispered under her breath a mantra. I am not forgotten, I am not forgotten. The last charge clicked into place. She exhaled. One spark and the bunker would be nothing but rubble. But as she turned to leave, she stopped cold. A sound, faint, muffled, human. Her heart stilled. It wasn't memory, it wasn't in her head. It was real. A voice, weak, groaning, from deeper within the generator wing. Her throat tightened. She followed the sound, each step slower, heavier, past pipes, past the hum of machines, and then another door. She pressed her ear against it. The sound was clearer now. A voice calling out, not words, just pain. Her hand froze on the handle. She had come here for the mission, for evidence, for destruction. But what if she wasn't the only one who had survived? Her chest ached with the weight of choice. Time was running out. The shipments would move tomorrow. The charges were set. One detour could mean failure. And yet, how could she walk away? Her scars burned beneath her shirt, each one a tally of defiance. And now, standing before that door, she realized something she hadn't let herself believe in years. Maybe she wasn't the last. Her hand tightened on the handle. And she pushed. Why had she hesitated? The mission was clear. Evidence, destruction, escape, nothing else. And yet Ara's hand gripped the handle of that steel door as if the weight of the world pressed behind it. A voice, faint, broken, had reached her through the hum of the generators. A voice that didn't belong here, not in her memories, not in her plan. She pushed. The door groaned open, revealing a small chamber lit by a single flickering bulb. The stench hit first, sweat, blood, decay. Chains rattled softly against the concrete wall. And then she saw him. A figure slumped in the corner, wrists shackled, body gaunt, skin stretched thin over bone. His uniform was shredded, unrecognizable. But the eyes, sunken, hollow, snapped to hers with sudden, desperate life. For a moment, Ara couldn't breathe. Voss, the voice cracked like dry leaves. Is it really you? Her heart froze. Rafe, she whispered. Lieutenant Rafe called her. Her second in command from Black Tide, declared dead alongside the others. She had watched the reports herself, listened to the debriefs, seen his name etched on the wall of the fallen. And yet here he was, a ghost like her. Her hands trembled as she rushed forward, kneeling beside him. His wrists were raw where the shackles had cut deep. His face carried the same marks hers did, scars carved with method, precision, cruelty. They said no one else. Her voice cracked, she couldn't finish. They lied, Rafe rasped, a faint smile twisting across his cracked lips. Guess we both got stubborn. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced them back. How long? Lost count, he coughed. Maybe 5 years, 6. They moved me down here after I stopped being useful. Why didn't they? Kill me? His laugh was hollow. I was a reminder, a warning to the others who never came. Her throat tightened. He had been here all this time, suffering in silence, while she clawed her way through jungles believing she was the only one left. She reached for the shackles, pulling at them. Rust bit into her fingers. "We're getting you out." Rafe's hand stopped hers, weak but firm. "Ara, listen." "No," she snapped, her voice trembling. "I'm not leaving you here." "You can't risk it," he whispered. "Not with what they're planning." Her jaw clenched. "I've already seen it, the shipments, the vaccines, they're moving them tomorrow." His eyes widened, horror flashing in them. "Then you know, this isn't just war, this is extermination." "I set charges on the generators," she said quickly. "It'll burn everything." "Good," he coughed again, pain racking his thin frame. "Then you have to leave me." She shook her head violently. "I didn't survive 9 years to walk away from you." Rafe's eyes softened. "You're not the same Ara I remember. You've carried hell in your body and still kept walking. Don't let me weigh you down now." Her hands trembled against the chains. She wanted to scream, to tear the walls down with her bare hands, to undo the years lost. But then heavy footsteps echoed outside. Voices, soldiers. Her body went cold. They were coming. Ara drew her pistol, dragging herself between the door and Rafe. She steadied her breath, eyes locked on the shadows slipping under the frame. The door creaked open. 2 guards stepped inside, rifles loose, not expecting anything but silence. Ara didn't hesitate. A flash of movement, 2 muffled shots, both dropped before their weapons raised. Silence fell heavy again. She reloaded quickly, breath shaking. Rafe stared at her, both awe and sorrow in his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "I'm exactly where I'm meant to be," she shot back. But her chest ached with doubt. She cut the shackles with a guard's key. The metal clattered to the floor. Rafe's body slumped forward, weak, trembling. She caught him, supporting his weight. "We don't have time," she said, forcing steel into her voice. "You move or I carry you." His lips curved into a faint grin. "Still bossy." "Still alive," she countered, hauling him to his feet. Every step toward the exit was torture. Rafe's weight slowed her, but leaving him wasn't an option. She could hear boots pounding elsewhere in the bunker. Alarms hadn't sounded yet, but it was only a matter of time. They reached the stairwell. Ara pressed him against the wall, scanning the hall, clear for now. Rafe's voice rasped again. "Ara, if you make it out, promise me something." "Save it for when we're out," she muttered, adjusting her grip. "Promise," he insisted, his eyes burning into hers. She swallowed hard. "What?" "Don't let them write us as ghosts. Don't let them bury us twice. Tell the truth." Her throat tightened. She wanted to promise. She wanted to believe she could, but promises in war were fragile things. Before she could answer, the wail of a siren split the silence. Her blood ran cold. The vault breach had triggered security. They knew someone was inside. Red lights flashed down the corridor. Heavy boots thundered closer. Shouts echoed through the halls. Ara gritted her teeth. "Move." She dragged Rafe up the stairs, every muscle in her body screaming. Her mind raced. The charges were set. The evidence was gathered. But with the alarms blaring, extraction was no longer a question of stealth. It was survival. They stumbled into the upper level. Soldiers rounded the corner, rifles raised. Ara fired first, precise, controlled. 2 down, 3, but more voices rose. She pulled Rafe into a side room, slamming the door. Her chest heaved, sweat stinging her scars. Rafe leaned against the wall, his breath ragged. "You can't hold this forever," he gasped. "I don't need forever," she said, her eyes hard. "Just long enough." She pulled the detonator from her pack, fingers brushing the trigger. The charges were ready. One press and the bunker would become a tomb. But she hesitated. Rafe stared at her, eyes wide. "Ara, what are you waiting for?" Her hands shook. If she pressed it now, they would die here. She would die, he would die, and maybe the weapon with them. But if she waited, if she tried to drag him further, risked another corridor, she might lose everything. Her heart pounded, torn between duty and the one thread of humanity she had just found. The door rattled as soldiers slammed against it. Shouts filled the air. Rafe's voice broke through the chaos. "Ara, don't choose me over the mission, don't you dare." Her eyes burned. She gripped the detonator tighter, sweat slick on her palms. And in that moment the weight of 9 years pressed down on her shoulders. The scars, the silence, the faces of the dead. Her choice wasn't just hers anymore. It was the choice of every ghost left behind. Why did her hand refuse to move? The detonator burned against Ara's palm, slick with sweat. One press and it would all end, the bunker, the shipments, the weapon, the ghosts that haunted her. But Rafe's eyes locked on hers, pleading and commanding all at once. "Don't choose me over the mission." The door shuddered under the slam of boots. Soldiers shouted on the other side. Time was bleeding away. Ara's breath came ragged. Then, in one sharp motion, she clipped the detonator back onto her vest. "Not yet," she hissed. Rafe's eyes widened. "Ara, we're not dying in here." The door burst open. Figures poured in, rifles raised. Ara fired first. 2 down. Another shot cracked past her head. She dragged Rafe behind a metal crate, her pistol barking in steady rhythm. Soldiers fell, but more voices echoed from the hall. Her clip clicked empty. She swore under her breath, snatching one of the fallen guards' rifles. The weight felt foreign in her hands after so many years, but muscle memory carried her through. "Can you walk?" she shouted. "Barely," Rafe rasped. "Then crawl if you have to." She hauled him to his feet, pulling him into the corridor. Sirens wailed. Red lights spun overhead, painting the walls in frantic flashes. Every corner screamed with danger. They stumbled toward the outer wing. Ara's mind raced. The extraction raft was too far, they'd never reach it like this. Another option, another way out, there had to be. They reached a stairwell. Gunfire rang from above. She yanked Rafe sideways into a maintenance tunnel. The air was suffocating, thick with dust and oil. Pipes ran along the walls, some dripping, some glowing faintly with heat. She guided him through, their footsteps echoing. Her own body screamed with exhaustion, every scar aching, every muscle burning. But she forced herself forward. Rafe stumbled, nearly collapsing. She caught him under the arm, teeth gritted. "Don't you dare quit on me now." His lips twisted into a faint grin despite the blood on them. "Still bossy." She almost smiled back, but the pounding of boots cut it short. Shadows filled the tunnel behind them, soldiers shouting. Ara dropped to one knee, bracing the rifle. Short bursts, controlled fire. The tunnel flashed with light, smoke filling the narrow space. Bodies fell, but more pressed forward. She grabbed Rafe again, dragging him through a side hatch. They tumbled into another chamber, an old supply depot, crates stacked high. She slammed the hatch shut, jamming it with a loose pipe. Her chest heaved, sweat dripping down her face. She pulled Rafe down behind a crate, both of them gasping for breath. For a long moment, neither spoke, just the sound of alarms, just the sound of their hearts hammering against ribs. Finally, Rafe's voice broke through, hoarse and heavy. "You shouldn't have come back." She turned sharply, eyes blazing. "And leave this." She gestured toward the ceiling, toward the sirens, toward everything this place had become. "Let them win. Let them poison the world." "You're not here for them," Rafe whispered. "You're here for you." Her breath caught. The words stung because they were true. She hated him for seeing it, hated herself for not denying it. Her fists clenched. "Does it matter why I came back if it ends the same way?" Rafe's gaze softened, but his next words cut deep. "Because if you die here for the wrong reason, then they've already won." The hatch behind them rattled. Metal screeched. The soldiers were breaking through. Ara's eyes darted to the crates. Labels fuel munitions. Her mind spun. A plan, risky, desperate, but maybe the only one. She pulled out a small charge from her vest, planted it on the nearest crate. Rafe's eyes widened. "You'll kill us both." "Not if we run fast enough." The hatch burst open. Soldiers stormed in, rifles raised. Ara yanked Rafe to his feet, dragging him toward the far exit. She pressed the detonator. The explosion roared, flames ripping through the depot. Crates shattered, fuel igniting in a wave of fire. The blast hurled them forward, the heat searing against her back. They hit the ground hard, ears ringing. Behind them, the tunnel collapsed in smoke and fire. Screams echoed, soldiers caught in the inferno. Ara pushed herself up, coughing, dragging Rafe again. Every step was agony, but the fire behind them left no choice. They stumbled into an exterior corridor. Cool air hit her face. A faint glow of dawn painted the horizon through a slit of open sky. Freedom! But not yet. A squad waited at the gate, rifles locked, no hesitation. Ara froze, her body coiled, her rifle raised. Too many. She couldn't take them all. Then gunfire cracked from above. Soldiers dropped one by one, clean shots through skulls and throats. Ara's head snapped upward. On the cliff above, a figure stood, rifle steady, scope glinting in the dawn light. Her chest tightened. She knew that silhouette. Admiral Hart. He wasn't supposed to be here, but he was. The last soldier fell. Silence rang louder than the gunfire. Ara dragged Rafe forward through the open gate into the jungle beyond. Lucian descended the rocky slope, rifle still in hand. His eyes locked on Ara, on Rafe, on the wreckage of ghosts trailing behind them. "You weren't supposed to come," Ara rasped. "And you weren't supposed to survive," Lucian replied. For a moment they just stared at each other. No ranks, no uniforms, just three survivors pulled together by war's cruel hand. But dawn was rising, and with it, the reality of what they still carried. The bunker still stood. The weapon still waited. Rafe slumped against Ara, barely conscious. "You have to finish it," he whispered. Ara's eyes burned. She looked at Lucian. He nodded once, heavy with understanding. The mission wasn't over, not yet. The storm had followed her out of the bunker, and it wasn't done tearing the world apart. Why did dawn feel heavier than night? The jungle around them whispered with wind, alive with birds, yet every sound pressed against Ara like a weight she couldn't shake. She had dragged herself out of the bunker once before, through storm and blood. She had told herself she'd never return. And yet, here she stood again, bruised, bleeding, with Rafe leaning on her shoulder and Lucian's rifle steady at her back. The three of them moved in silence, weaving through dense brush. The air was thick with smoke from the depot fire, ash drifting like black snow. The island itself seemed wounded but not dead. Not yet. They stopped near a clearing, the cliffs of the compound still visible above. Rafe collapsed against a rock, his breath ragged. Ara knelt beside him, pulling water from her canteen, lifting it to his lips. He sipped weakly, eyes closing before whispering, "You should have left me." She shook her head sharply. "And let them win twice, never." Lucian crouched nearby, scanning the perimeter. His voice was low, almost gentle. "He's right about one thing. Carrying him will slow us, and the shipment's still inside." Ara's jaw clenched. She hated the logic, hated that every word from Lucian's mouth pressed against the truth she didn't want to face. "I set charges," she said. "The whole place can burn." Lucian's eyes narrowed. "Then why isn't it burning already?" Her chest tightened. The detonator. She had clipped it back, refused to press it when the moment came. And now, maybe it was too late. "They moved the shipments up," she muttered. "They'll be gone by sundown. We don't have hours. We have minutes." Silence stretched. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Finally, Lucian spoke. "Then we go back in." Ara's stomach twisted. "You weren't there, Lucian. You didn't feel it. That place, every wall is a scar. I can't." she stopped herself, biting the words before they betrayed weakness. But Lucian only watched her, not with command, not with judgment, with something quieter, understanding. "You already did," he said softly, "and you walked out. You can do it again, but this time you won't be alone." Ara turned to Rafe. His eyes, sunken and tired, still burned with the same fire she remembered from Black Tide. "Don't waste me," he whispered. "If I can't walk, then use me. Let my survival mean something." Her chest ached. Every part of her wanted to fight, to scream, to deny what the world was asking. But she saw it in both their faces. This wasn't about choice anymore. This was about cost. She stood, the weight of decision pressing her shoulders. "Then we finish it together." Lucian nodded once. Rafe gave the faintest smile, as if even the thought of going back lit some ember of pride in his broken body. They moved. Lucian took point, Ara beside him, Rafe trailing weakly, supported when he stumbled. They circled the compound, climbing higher until the cliffs opened into a narrow ledge overlooking a rear service entrance. Less guarded, less watched. Ara's body shook as they descended toward it. Every step carried echoes, the cell, the tally marks, the cuts across her ribs. The place called to her like a wound reopening. At the gate, 2 guards stood smoking. Ara signaled. Lucian raised his rifle. 2 precise shots muffled through the suppressor. Both men fell without a sound. They slipped inside. The corridors hadn't changed. Fluorescent lights, damp concrete, the hum of machines in the distance. Ara's chest constricted. Her scars itched beneath her shirt, phantom pain pulling her back into memory. But Lucian's voice cut through the haze. "Focus. Where do they stage the shipments?" She swallowed hard, forcing her mind into clarity. "North Wing, loading bay, just beyond the labs." They moved, every corner a threat. Twice they ducked into side rooms, soldiers passing within arm's reach. Rafe leaned heavily on Ara, his breath shallow but steady. Finally, they reached the loading bay. And there it was. Dozens of crates stacked high, each painted with red medical insignia. Trucks idled, engines low, ready to carry the shipments to waiting boats. Soldiers patrolled, some armed, some in white coats, checking manifests. Ara's stomach turned. So much death disguised as mercy. "We don't have enough firepower to fight through," Lucian whispered. Ara scanned the bay, her eyes locking on a fuel line running along the ceiling, feeding into the trucks. Her mind raced. One shot, hit that valve and the whole bay goes up. Lucian frowned, "And us with it." "Not if we're already moving." Rafe's voice rasped from behind them. "Do it, burn it all." Ara tightened her grip on the rifle. Her hands shook not from fear but from the weight of what this meant. No coming back, no second chance. Then she saw him. At the far end of the bay, overseeing the operation, stood a man in black uniform, decorated, commanding. His posture was sharp, his gaze cold. The Admiral Rafe had mentioned, the one behind it all. Ara's blood ran cold. Recognition flashed like lightning. She knew that face. He had been there 9 years ago, on the monitors during her interrogations. The voice that ordered each cut, the one who said no one would remember her. Her hands trembled on the rifle. Lucian noticed, his eyes narrowing. "Who is he?" Ara's voice was a whisper of steel. "The one who made me." Lucian's expression hardened. "Then let's unmake him." The bay bustled with movement. Time bled thin. If she hesitated now, the trucks would roll, the shipments would vanish into the world. She raised her rifle, sights locking on the valve. But then his voice carried across the bay, deep, commanding. "Bring the prisoner." Ara froze. 2 soldiers dragged someone forward. Not Rafe, another figure, young, thin, shackled, their face pale, terrified. Her breath hitched. "A child." "No, not just a prisoner, a test subject." The Admiral's voice boomed again. "Let the world think we saved them. Let their children carry our weapon for us." Ara's chest burned. Her fingers shook on the trigger. The shot would ignite the fuel, destroy the crates, kill the Admiral, end the plan. But it would kill the child too. Her mind fractured. Mission, survival, innocence. Lucian whispered urgently, "Ara now." Her body froze. Her heart pounded. The weight of 9 years pressed on her, every scar screaming with memory. And in that moment, Ara realized. This was the choice she had always been walking toward. The mission or her humanity. Why did the child's eyes cut sharper than any blade? Ara's finger hovered on the trigger, the fuel valve in her sights. One shot and the bay would become fire. The crates, the weapon, the Admiral, everything would vanish into ash. But so would the child, shackled and trembling at the center of it all. Her chest burned, her scars itched, her mind screamed. Lucian's voice pressed against her ear, low, urgent. "Ara, do it. We don't get another chance." Her breath shook. The Admiral's voice carried through the bay, smooth and cold. "Load them faster. The world is waiting." Rafe leaned against the wall, his voice a rasp of pain. "Ara, if you hesitate, millions die." Her grip tightened, the rifle shook in her hands. Mission, humanity, mission, humanity. The words pulsed in her skull, each one tearing her apart. The child's eyes met hers just for a second, wide, afraid, but alive. Ara lowered the rifle. Lucian spun to her, disbelief in his eyes. "What are you?" She cut him off, her voice steady, though her heart thundered. "Not like this, not over an innocent body." Lucian clenched his jaw, but before he could argue, Ara moved. She slipped from cover, her body flowing like shadow across the steel floor. Soldiers patrolled, eyes elsewhere. She ducked behind crates, weaving closer, closer, until the child was only steps away. The 2 guards holding the shackles barely had time to register her. One slash of her blade, one silent shot, both crumpled. The child gasped, eyes wide, but Ara pressed a finger to her lips. "Quiet, you're safe." She pulled the shackles free, lifting the frail body into her arms. Too light, too fragile. She tucked the child close, shielding them with her own scarred frame. But the Admiral had seen. His voice boomed across the bay. "There she is, the ghost who thinks scars make her strong." Ara's blood ran cold, every muscle in her body tensed. The Admiral stepped forward, flanked by soldiers. His face was exactly as she remembered, sharp jaw, cold eyes, lips curved in disdain. The face burned into her nightmares, the voice that had ordered every cut across her ribs. He raised his hand. Soldiers aimed their rifles. Lucian's shot cracked from the shadows. One soldier down, another, chaos erupted. The bay exploded with gunfire. Shouts, smoke, the clang of boots against steel. Lucian covered from above, precision in every bullet. Ara dashed between crates, the child clutched to her chest, Rafe stumbling behind with what little strength he had left. Bullets tore through wood, splinters flying. Ara rolled behind a forklift, the child pressed against her heart, shielding them with her body. Her breath came ragged, her scars burning like fire. She glanced up. The valve still hung overhead. One shot could end it, but now the child was free. Her jaw tightened. This was the moment. She set the child down, meeting their terrified eyes. "Run, find the jungle, don't stop." The child hesitated, tears brimming. "Go," Ara urged, her voice breaking. "Live." The child bolted, small legs carrying them into shadow. Soldiers shouted, but Lucian's bullets cut them down before they could give chase. Ara rose, rifle in hand, sights locked on the valve. The Admiral's voice cut through the smoke. "You'll kill yourself with them. That's all you ever were, a weapon waiting to be discarded." Ara's heart pounded. She saw the years in his eyes, the scars across her ribs, the ghosts of every tally carved into her skin. And she knew. She wasn't broken, she wasn't discarded. She was the storm. Her finger pulled the trigger. The shot cracked. The valve burst. Flames erupted across the bay, racing through the fuel lines, igniting the crates. The roar of fire swallowed everything, the trucks, the syringes, the lies painted with red crosses. Soldiers screamed as the inferno consumed them. The Admiral's face twisted in fury as fire closed around him. His last words were drowned in the roar. Ara grabbed Rafe, dragging him as the world burned. Lucian met them at the side entrance, his face lit by fire. Move. They sprinted through smoke and ash, the walls collapsing behind them. Heat seared their skin, but the air ahead was cool, fresh, alive. They burst from the loading bay into the jungle, flames chasing them, the compound collapsing in a storm of fire and steel. They didn't stop until the roar was a distant echo, until only the wind and the sea filled the silence. Ara collapsed against a rock, chest heaving, body trembling. The child was gone into the trees, safe for now. Rafe lay beside her, broken but alive. Lucian stood above them, rifle in hand, eyes locked on the burning horizon. For a long time, none of them spoke. The fire said everything. Finally, Rafe's voice, weak but steady. "You did it." Ara shook her head, eyes on the rising smoke. "We did it, and the world will never know." Lucian knelt, his hand on her shoulder. "Some victories aren't written, some are carried." Her eyes closed, the weight of 9 years pressing down but not breaking her. For the first time in years, her breath came steady. The world would never carve her name in stone. She would never stand on a stage, never wear medals. But maybe that was the point. Some wars aren't fought for glory. Some storms don't need thunder to be heard. As the fire devoured the compound, Ara whispered the only truth she had left. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And with that she rose, scarred, silent, unbroken. Not a victim, not even just a survivor. But the storm itself, walking forward into whatever horizon came next.